I swear this story is just like a movie plot. When I was researching it, I could barely believe my eyes. Not only because of what this crazy woman did to her poor victims, but also because of how she did it and then how she was caught. This story is about a woman who poisoned her victims, the people that lent her money, so that she wouldn't have to pay it back. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel where we talk about mostly Hungarian true crime cases, and my name is Tímea. And I know I missed last week's upload. That was because sadly my grandma died at the beginning of the year, so I didn't really feel like talking about more death and murder, but I thought I would make a comeback with this crazy case. Oh my god. First of all, this case took place in Slovakia, but the perpetrator and one of the victims is Hungarian. And I don't even think I need to disclose this because I believe my audience is very educated in geography and in history, but a certain part of Slovakia once used to belong to Hungary, and therefore many people there are bilingual or they have Hungarian names. The other thing is, Hungarian is not a Proto-Slavic language. Hungarian and Slovak are not mutually intelligible languages, despite this common misconception. So I'm not sure that I pronounced the victims' names correctly. I think I'm doing my best, but I still may be mispronouncing them. I would like to quickly note that everything I'm sharing in this video is alleged information, so do not sue me for defamation. This is for entertainment purposes only, as the case is still ongoing. Now let's get started. The villain of this crazy story is a woman named Gyönyör Teréz, and her name alone freaks me out because Gyönyör in Hungarian means either beauty or pleasure, which is everything that this woman is not. The police started investigating her about 5 years ago after 3 of her victims caught her in the act of trying to kill one of them, and then they reported her to the police. The 3 women are called Zdenka, Uhlárová, Jana Kucháriková, and Rigó, Klaudia. As for Klaudia, I know that she must be Hungarian and bilingual, but I cannot confirm for a fact that Zdenka and Jana also speak Hungarian too, because based on their names alone, they are Slovakian. Also, in the video, I will refer to Jana as Janka sometimes, because I was under the impression that the 2 names are interchangeable, but maybe they are not, I don't know. So I am sorry if Janka is not her actual name. Teréz is now 69 years old, and she used to work as an elementary school teacher. But sometime in the 90s, she figured that the banking sphere would be way better for her. There is not much information about her background, but I know that she does not have any formal education in finance. But anyway, in the 2000s, she somehow got hired in a bank, and soon enough, she was made bank manager. And then in 2010, she retired from that job. She was from a reputable family, and she was generally well liked in the community. Then, after she became a pensioner, she often borrowed money from a number of people for various reasons. Sometimes it was under the guise of an investment, sometimes it was a personal urgent loan, but either way, all of the people who lent her money trusted her because of her good reputation, and nobody questioned her ability to handle money well, since she used to be a bank manager. But now, let's get started with her poor victims. Here is the experience of her first victim, Zdenka. They were around the same age and knew each other since they were little girls. Their friendship was perfect for several decades, and Zdenka had made business with Teréz before without any problems. She lent Teréz money on at least 2 separate occasions. First, she lent her about 5,000 euros for a small business opportunity, and she got her money back in time and in whole, thank God. But then, in 2014, Teréz had to ask for a big favor from Zdenka. The reason was that one of Teréz's friends, a person named Anna, needed an urgent medical care, and Anna had to sell her own house to pay the medical bills. And apparently Teréz was gonna help her somehow with this real estate sale. But somehow, somewhere in this ordeal, Teréz needed cash to sell someone else's home. I truly don't understand why, but Zdenka, being a good friend, helped her. She lent her 44,000 euros, and they even wrote a contract stating that Teréz had to pay back all of the money by the 31st of March 2015. In the meanwhile, the two friends kept in touch and they met regularly. On one occasion, Zdenka visited Teréz in her home. They had a nice chat, they drank their coffee, and Zdenka left a few hours later, leaving Teréz's house just fine. On the way home, though, she started feeling sick. She had nausea, dryness in the mouth, dizziness, and weakness. She stopped to get some water, and luckily she got a bit better, but not quite. So, despite being very sick, she had no choice but to get in her car and drive to another city to see the doctor about her symptoms. The doctor checked everything that they could, but there was no apparent cause to this sudden onset illness. The next morning, she was fine again, and life went on as if nothing happened. But now she thought that everything was gonna be okay, so she went on to live her life, and she absolutely did not suspect that Teréz had just tried to poison her. So, because of that, a few weeks after this incident, Zdenka had no problem meeting Teréz again when Teréz asked her to give Teréz and her husband a ride by car to the capital. And while driving in the car, Teréz gave Zdenka a bottle of water to drink, and she only took a sip, but after a few minutes she felt this weird dry sensation in her mouth again, just like earlier. But luckily nothing more happened this time, and Zdenka just thought that she may have some kind of allergy that she didn't know about before. And that was the reason why she agreed to meet Teréz again a third time. What actually happened was that the deadline for Teréz to pay back the debt of the 44,000 euros came and went, and Zdenka still hadn't gotten her money back. So she arranged a meeting with Teréz to talk about the debt and to find a good solution. On the day that they were supposed to meet, on the 7th of April 2015, Zdenka got a phone call from Teréz saying that her son was very sick and was taken to the hospital. So Zdenka, being an awesome friend, visited Teréz to give her emotional support. And while talking their emotions out and having a friendly chat, they had some tea, and soon enough Zdenka got very sick, just like the last time. She got very dizzy and weak, and she was increasingly thirsty, but she could just never drink enough water, and she kept throwing it up. So in the end, Teréz's husband gave her a ride home, well, more specifically to Zdenka's parents' home. There her brother finally called an ambulance for her, and that is how sick she was. She was taken to the hospital, but as you can imagine, every test came back negative, and there was no sign of anything wrong in her body. Thank God, though, she survived all 3 murder attempts. Now, her other 2 victims, thank God, also got lucky and survived, but they were also in hell and back with this woman. Her second victim was Klaudia, and even though she was considerably younger than Teréz, she trusted her and they were kind of like friends because Klaudia's mom was a very close friend of Teréz. She said, and I quote, "She was my mom's best friend. I have known her for like 50 years. She was family to me," end quote. And this was not the first time that Teréz had borrowed money from this family. But the most important one is the following. Teréz said that she needed a favor because she could not pay the mortgage on her house. And even though she wanted to sell this house and even found a potential buyer, she needed to resolve the issue with the bank, otherwise she was going to lose the house. So in 2014, without writing a contract of any sort and without setting a deadline to pay, Klaudia lent her 18,000 euros. Big mistake. And Klaudia didn't want to bother poor Teréz with the debt, so it wasn't until the beginning of 2015 that she started asking her about when she would pay back. Teréz lied and said that she would give everything back by the 20th of February. So Klaudia didn't worry about it and patiently waited it out. The one day, Teréz visited Klaudia at her workplace in order to ask for a favor. She asked Klaudia to make some photocopies of some of the documents that she had. So Klaudia, being a very nice and friendly and decent woman, did just that. She left her office, leaving her cup of tea on the desk, and left to get the photocopies done, leaving Teréz alone in the room. Then Klaudia returned with the photocopies and finished her tea. And at first nothing was wrong. But a little bit later after this, she went to a meeting at her workplace, and that was when she suddenly got very sick. She had a very strong dry feeling in her mouth, she was passing out, she couldn't keep herself balanced, so some of the people at the meeting called an ambulance for her and she was taken to the hospital. And as you already know the story, Klaudia's tests all came back negative and she made a complete recovery by the next morning. A few weeks after this, Teréz visited Klaudia at her home again and they had coffee again, and guess what? Klaudia got sick again and she was hospitalized and she survived again. While Klaudia was in her hospital room at the ICU, another patient, who she knew to be the notary of the town, Jana, was also brought in with the very same symptoms as her. The next day, both Klaudia and Jana were removed from the ICU as they suddenly made a huge recovery and they were placed in another room at the hospital for further exams. So the pair had the chance to talk and get to know each other a little bit better. As Klaudia was very worried about her sudden illness, she was really concerned that the doctors just could not find a logical reason. She tried to think of a reason herself, and as she recalled her memories, she couldn't help but realize that Teréz was somehow always there on both occasions that she got so sick. She was very smart and figured that the tea that she drank had to do something with this. At first, she didn't want to tell this to her roommate, Jana, because she thought that she would seem crazy. So Klaudia decided to just call her mom to share this theory about Teréz and the tea. After all, her mom was Teréz's best friend. Klaudia wanted to make sure that this poisoning couldn't happen to anyone ever again. As you can imagine, Klaudia's mom was shocked and in disbelief at first that her BFF would do something like this. But the theory seemed to check out, and in the end, Klaudia took her courage and told Jana about the poisoning theory too, but of course she took it with some skepticism. But now on to victim number 3, Jana. Jana now knew Klaudia after being roommates with her at the hospital. But she also personally knew Zdenka and of course Teréz as well. Jana first started lending money to Teréz, who ran her own little investment company, so to speak. She would borrow money from her acquaintances with a promise of a nice interest rate and then pay that interest back with the money that she borrowed from other people. And in the beginning, Teréz always paid back Jana's money in whole and in time, as we know. But one day, Jana wanted out of this business and she figured it wasn't safe enough and she asked all of her money back from Teréz, which was, according to their contract, no less than 56,000 euros. That's a lot. And even though Jana kept pushing and she had her full right to get her money back, according to the contract, Teréz kept diverting the topic and never really got around paying back. Jana lost all of that money. Sometime in the February of 2015, Teréz decided to visit Janka in her notary public office. And whenever she had the chance, she must have taken it and laced Janka's tea that was on the desk with something while Janka was not looking. But as Janka finished her tea and the meeting carried on, at some point she became very sick. Janka felt like she was gonna pass out, she was rolling on the floor, her blood pressure was really high, and she had this very weird dry sensation in her mouth. And she pretty much begged Teréz to call for help, any kind of help. She could have just gone and fetched someone from the other office. She could have walked over to the ambulance station, which was next door, or she could have placed a phone call to anyone. But Teréz refused. She just sat there smirking, looking at Janka suffer in agony and misery on the floor. But Janka still had some strength left in her, and she was able to place a phone call, and she called her friend, who happened to be a psychiatrist. Now look, here is my 2 cents. It may be completely irrelevant, but I don't understand why you would call a psychiatrist for this kind of a symptom. If you're gonna call someone on the phone, you might as well call the ambulance or a doctor whose field is more relevant to your symptoms. But maybe Janka just wanted her friend to be with her, or maybe she did not know if her symptoms were serious enough to call an ambulance. I know I myself, for one, am afraid of calling an ambulance because I feel like I may be exaggerating what's happening to me, and I would not want to make too big of a deal out of it. I'm not sure, but either way, Janka called her psychiatrist friend, who showed up, but by the time he got there, Janka was passed out on the floor. She didn't know about herself. Her tests all came back negative, the CT scan did not indicate a stroke, and she made a full recovery by the next morning. But just like the other 2 victims on all of the other occasions, Janka was also oblivious to the truth that her friend was trying to kill her with poisoning, and she met Teréz again a few weeks later. They had coffee again, and Janka got hospitalized again. And it happened a 3rd time, luckily the last time, and I'm very happy to say that all 3 of the victims survived all of the murder attempts. And thank God, after this incident, Teréz was gonna get caught, but don't get your hopes up too high just yet, because there is more to the story. Do you remember Janka's psychiatrist friend? It was a man named Artur Ivanchik, and he was the one to notice this otherwise kinda obvious pattern that nobody else seemed to notice. He was aware of this mysterious sudden onset sickness that just took over young, healthy, able-bodied women all in the same town, who all spent time with Teréz when they got sick. And oh, did I mention that Teréz owed all of the women a lot of money? Seems like a motive to me. But the reason why he was able to notice this pattern was because he personally knew all of the victims. I guess this is the beauty of living in a small town where everybody knows everybody. And when Janka, one of Dr. Ivanchik's close friends, also went through the same fate as the other 2 women, he started to piece the puzzle pieces together. He suspected the poison to be a substance called atropine, which is pretty much the perfect poison, because after ingesting it, almost no test can detect it in the system, and it can cause dry mouth sensation, hallucinations, imbalance, vertigo, fainting, nausea, but with a high enough dose, it can also be lethal. But apparently, Teréz never put enough of the poison to actually kill someone. And by the way, atropine is what doctors in the past used to extract from the plant called belladonna, aka mandrake, aka acociophana. And it has been used by eye doctors to dilate the pupil and for other medical purposes. But as I mentioned before, once ingested, it can cause a big damage, but it cannot be detected. That's why none of the victims could figure out what got them so sick so fast. But now that Dr. Ivanchik was quite confident about his theory, He arranged a meeting with all of the 3 women and they came up with a plan to catch Teréz in the act. And they actually followed through with it. The plan was that Janka invited Teréz to her notary public office, again to have coffee. And when she arrived, Teréz brought some small gifts to Janka that she suggested that Janka brings out to her car so it's not taking up space in the office or whatever. And that's what she did. Janka left the cup of coffee and Teréz unattended in the office while she left to put the gifts into her car. And when she returned, Teréz became very friendly, offering and pushing Janka to drink the freshly brewed, hot and delicious cup of coffee. But Janka refused, saying that her blood pressure was just too high and that was the reason that hospitalized her the last time too, so she should not drink coffee. She was gonna drink tea instead. But Janka offered the cup of coffee to her coworker to drink. And when Teréz saw that an innocent bystander, the coworker of Janka, was gonna drink the cup of coffee that she assumably laced with poison, she fell into this hysteria. She acted like she suddenly got so sick that she was gonna faint, that she needed to get an ambulance right away. She started screaming, shouting, crying. She did everything, just like in a movie, to prevent the coworker from drinking the cup of coffee and to divert the 2 women's attention from the coffee. But obviously the coworker was in on the plan. Don't worry, she wasn't gonna drink the coffee, though she still acted like she was gonna do it regardless of Teréz's weird behavior. She brought the cup of coffee out of the office and secretly gave it to Janka's husband, who got it sent to a forensic lab. It took 4 months for the lab to finally test the coffee, but when the test came back, it showed that it was indeed laced with atropine. So Dr. Ivanchik, Klaudia, Janka and Zdenka all got very happy, thinking that they just got Teréz, they got her red-handed, and they went to the police to make a report. But the police wasn't as welcoming as you would like. They said that the 3 victims shouldn't have lent Teréz money in the first place if they didn't want to be killed. This is what I call victim blaming at its best. How would have anyone known years in advance, when they lent money to a seemingly trustworthy person, that Teréz was gonna turn into this fucking psychopath and a serial poisoner, a possible serial killer? Anyway, the police told them that making a case against Teréz wasn't going to be easy, because there was no physical proof to suggest that Teréz was the one to put the poison in that cup of coffee. She may have been framed. Luckily for them, as we know, Janka was a notary, so she knew how to go about legal things, and she kept appealing the case and pushed the police to finally do their job properly. It actually took years to finally get the case to go on court and to get the media to talk about it. Unbelievably, when she was finally going on court, Teréz was not charged with attempted murder, but with just physical assault. Because of this, she was not detained while her case was ongoing, and during those years, she was on the loose, being able to harm other people. Because that's right, Zdenka, Janka and Klaudia were not Teréz's only 3 victims. She only wanted to get rid of them so that she wouldn't have to pay back all the money that she owed these 3 women, which was a lot. She collectively owed them 118,000 euros. Now, that's a lot of money that these women were never gonna see again. But in reality, Teréz was this evil, cunning, calculating bitch, like the one from that movie on Netflix called I Care a Lot, because she seemed charming and friendly and trustworthy, so she preyed on elderly people both in Hungary and in Slovakia. And these poor old people were vulnerable and impressionable, so she got them to sign their homes over to her. They gave her the entire fortune, their savings, all of their money that they had. And it happened on multiple occasions, not just once. On top of that, there were some serious allegations that certain old people died of a sudden and unexpected stroke while in her presence, conveniently after having given her their family homes. And allegedly, for entertainment purposes only, she even killed an entire family after she took their fortune, an elderly couple and their son. And I even read somewhere that there is an old lady who lives in a care home that lost everything to Teréz. But if that's still not enough proof for you, one of Teréz's ex-co-workers, a woman that she had beef with who was an otherwise healthy woman, suddenly collapsed and died of a sudden stroke at the London airport after having spent some time with Teréz, allegedly for entertainment purposes only. But get this, because the story is still far from the end. Teréz may have indirectly poisoned even more people, namely the colleagues of Zdenka. After the poisoning was confirmed and the police investigation had started, Zdenka suddenly remembered a number of occasions where things seemed very weird, but at the time she didn't think too much out of it. For example, Teréz being a very good friend, or so she seemed, she often brought small gifts to Zdenka whenever they met, things like homemade jam, cookies, and the like. Zdenka owned a beauty salon and she had lots of employees, so she often decided to pass these small gifts on to people that would have liked it more. She had a masseuse employee at the salon, a blind man named Milan, who had a service dog. Milan loved crepes, which in Eastern Europe and in Central Europe is often filled with jam. So Zdenka decided to give him this delicious homemade raspberry jam, plus to two other colleagues. One day, as Milan came to work in the morning, he told Zdenka that he had been in the hospital the day before, as he needed a CT scan for his head. Naturally, Zdenka became very worried and asked why. Milan apparently suddenly passed out for no reason, and when he came to, he felt incredibly thirsty and weak. So he went out to the kitchen to drink some water, but sadly, he tripped and fell over and banged his head into the radiator. It hurt a lot, but he didn't make a big deal out of it and he just went back to sleep. Sadly, when he woke up from his sleep, his pillow was covered in blood. But as you can see, because of the complicated circumstances of his injury, nobody suspected poisoning. It just seemed like this poor blind man suffered a terrible accident and that's it. But now, in retrospect, the fact that he was dizzy, weak and thirsty, it is possible that the jam he ate was laced with poison. But that's not all. On another occasion, Zdenka offered some cookies that she received from Teréz to all of the people in her beauty salon. Luckily, nobody accepted, but Milan, the masseuse, allowed Zdenka to give a couple of the cookies to his service dog. Soon enough, the dog became very ill, seemed weak and lethargic, but after he was given water, the dog got better and seemed fine again. This actually happened twice, so the vet suspected epilepsy, and this poor dog was given epilepsy medication for years, completely unnecessarily, when it seems a lot more like the cookies that the poor dog ate were laced with poison. And that's still not the end. One of Zdenka's colleagues said that her husband literally fainted in the bathroom after having eaten from the raspberry jam that Zdenka got from Teréz but gave to the employee. And finally, another employee who ate from the raspberries suddenly broke out in an uncontrollable laughter fit. She could just not stop laughing and giggling. At first, it seemed funny, of course, but after a while, as you can see, it was creepy AF. Poor woman later suffered from hallucinations too, and she was treated in a psychiatry. And we may not even know all of her victims. Who knows how many people she may have harmed or even killed during her lifetime? I'm pretty sure that Zdenka wasn't the first one. It is theorized that she may even have had accomplices because what she did was actually a pretty big organized crime. First of all, where did she get so much atropine from? Because I don't think that she was extracting it from Belladonna in her kitchen now, did she? Some local people theorize that it may have been an unnamed man who was an ex-doctor who lost his medical license because of his questionable moral decisions, who could have supplied her with all of this poison and told her how to administer it. And allegedly, this unnamed man also conveniently got a few homes from a couple of strangers. But some people think that Teréz's husband must have known what was going on too. After all, he was the one to be driving her everywhere all the time. How would you keep such a big secret, such a big organized crime from your husband, like the person that you spend every day with? Though I must add, her husband at first vehemently denied his involvement, and indeed he seemed kinda clueless. But as the investigation unfolded, he sided with his wife. Who knows why? I don't know if he's involved. Anyway, now on the 20th of September 2021, Teréz was found guilty of 10 counts of deceit and 5 counts of attempted murder, and she was sentenced to 25 years in prison. I don't know if that is the life sentence in Slovakia, because it seems like a very lenient sentence for her alleged crimes. But the sentence is not final yet, she is appealing it, and the Supreme Court is gonna come to a decision in the coming months. But here is the kicker. During the whole investigation and the trial, she was not detained even despite the attempted murder charges. How that is possible? Don't even ask me. It must be some kind of a legal loophole I can't explain. But she is legit living her life freely in her little home. She is not in prison even though she is charged with 5 counts of attempted murder. And Teréz had her own opinions about this whole case, of course. She gave a brief interview to the journalist whose articles I'm using as sources, link down below if you speak Hungarian. She denies all allegations, of course, and she had an eerily calm personality. Nothing seemed to upset her. When she heard her 25-year sentence, she didn't seem to be affected at all. If anything, she is offended because she thinks that she's been wronged. First of all, she says that there is no actual proof that she was the one to put the poison into the cup of tea that was taken to the forensic lab. After all, it could have been Jana or her husband or her colleague. And as much as I hate to say it, that's true. In actuality, it is almost unbelievable that the court even accepted the cup of coffee as alleged proof because of the questionable way the evidence was collected. The police should have been involved. Additionally, Teréz keeps claiming that each time her victims got sick from drinking either the tea or the coffee during their meetings, she also got sick, and she theorizes that on all of those occasions, the drinks must have just gone rancid or whatever. She also tried to debunk Klaudia's claim for her money because they didn't write a legal contract, and there is no proof of the debt. Teréz says Klaudia is, quote, insane and not to be trusted, unquote. Then Teréz says that she actually only owned Zdenka 4,000 euros, but Zdenka somehow forged their contract with an extra zero. But this, of course, can be proven to be a lie. The contract is there fair and square with the numbers clearly visible. Finally, Teréz tried to implicate Jana, saying that Jana was the one to run all of those questionable illegal investment schemes, and Jana was the one to try to poison her as a revenge for whatever reason. But of course, this cannot be supported either. By the way, despite the doctor's medical opinions, according to which none of the victims suffered a stroke, Teréz stubbornly keeps claiming that the mysterious sickness could have only been a stroke. She doesn't care about science and medicine, and apparently her opinion is more valid than a doctor's. But finally, what was her motive? Of course, the financial gain is there, it's pretty obvious, we don't need to talk about that, right? But what made her go such sick lengths to be poisoning people? Because if she just wanted to get rid of these people so that she wouldn't have to pay back the debt, she could have used different methods of killing someone that was much shorter and much less fucking obvious. I mean, these women always got sick when they met her. The truth was gonna come out. She was either very dumb and did not think of the consequences, or I think it is possible that she enjoyed torturing people because she was there looking at these women as they were getting sick. She was there smirking, and she, despite having so much poison to use on so many occasions, she never administered enough to actually kill someone. Well, one thing is for sure. She owed at least 150,000 euros in total to all of her identified creditors. But where did all of this money go? Nobody knows. She lives in a modest apartment in one of those communist blocks of flats. She doesn't have a fancy car, she doesn't go on expensive vacations, doesn't own any jewelry. Nothing is to suggest that she spent all of this money on herself. Even those houses and lands that she allegedly stole from those elderly people that I mentioned before are gone. She only has one house left that she got from a friendly stranger. Some people assume that the motive really could have only been some kind of a pyramid scheme or a spiral of debt. Her previous workplace, the bank where she used to work as a bank manager, supports this by saying that between 2004 and 2010, while she still worked there as a bank manager, she had 3 bank loans that she could not pay back. It seems most likely that she started borrowing money from people to pay her bank installments, and then she had to borrow money from even more people to pay those other people back, and so on, and eventually she just got so deep in this whirlpool that she thought murder was the only way out. But anyway, I hope she gets the punishment that she deserves, even though it is unlikely that her victims will ever get their money back. But what do you think of this case? Have you heard of a similar case like this before? Let us know down in the comments section. Don't forget to like the video if you like my presentation and subscribe to my channel, and also turn on the notification bell because I post a lot of similar videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I see you next time. Bye!